Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Stakeholder Committee meeting for Urban Growth Boundary, aka UGB. Laura, the chair, will take from here.
And we will pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
welcome to, I believe this is our fourth stakeholder meeting. We're meeting early today because of an event outside. We get our work done. If we need to continue, fine, but hopefully we'll get it in the next hour.
I mean, those chairs aren't for us. We're not going to have an audience.
They will go. We have celebratory, they're not drinks, it's candy. So hopefully we're done today, but if we're not, yeah,
Is that your carrot?
that's right. So we'll start with introductions. I'm Laura Bentley. I'm the chair and I am also on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I'm Kurt Nolte. I'm here representing the Planning Commission.
Adam Orkin, Orkin Associates.
Scott Reese, Brumlow Reese and Associates.
Judy Bird's Planning Commission.
Jake Sherrill, Milton resident.
I'm Paul Fricky with the City Attorney's Office.
Emily Schnarri, Planner 2.
Shubha Jangam, Senior Planner.
And I'm sure Bob.
Yes, yeah.
It's on his way. Bob is busy, and as are you all too. And I just really want to thank staff again for being on this committee. And in addition to your everyday, work, this is an additional item, but it's really important. So thank you very much. One thing that occurred since the last meeting was, Shubha, we did a summary of this stakeholder group and our work. Hopefully it will be an attachment if staff can. We would like to suggest, hopefully you all agree with it. It's still to be worked on today, but as it travels to council, it states who was on the stakeholder committee. It's a very diverse group, well represented throughout the city. Contact information in case anyone wants to talk to any of the committee members, and it also details our meetings and the purpose of the stakeholder meeting per the comp plan, and then also the direction that we receive from council. So the second page are what we termed feedback. We can rename it. Wanted to be sure that some of the dialogue that we had extensively for the past 4 months with the stakeholder group was captured. And I believe that's our starting point for today, is to be sure that things that we talked about are represented and can be carried forward to council. And then Shubha, your goal for this meeting today is to get consensus
To the map.
on the map.
Yep.
So with that, I will just ask if everyone had a chance to look over this, the feedback and
Yep, there is a handout today provided, and that summarizes all the topics and discussions we had over time. And, some of them may need little more discussion, but that's our agenda item 4, actually. That's where I have, left or, have more time assigned so that you guys can have more discussion about it. So
a couple of things that I wrote in that I wanted to be sure we agreed to as a group. At the end of our last meeting, we talked about Deerfield. Adam, you are deeply involved in that area, and you discussed the need through LCI to point out restraints in the form-based code to having very high level of development there rather than kind of, ragtag what
What
get
you
all
have
the,
now.
the leftovers. So I just wanted to be sure that you read that bullet item and you agree with it, that council really needs to, I don't know if the LCI has to be complete for that to occur, and I don't know the time frame.
It's already on the way.
Yeah,
He is
I
on
think
the-
if I could speak, I think the Milton overlay form-based code gives you, as the property owner, all the things you need to redevelop the property. I think it's a well-done document that y'all put together years ago. And with the LCI study with Alpharetta is going to be very helpful. The drawback now will be that you already have existing product on the ground and developers don't own it. Investors own it. So investors won't be interested in redeveloping their property for the simple reason they don't know how to go about doing it. But there's enough cash flow that comes off the properties, so they don't want to sell it for redevelopment opportunities. So that's kind of the drawback when you get into these situations. But I think the tools are in place for the Deerfield area to be redeveloped over time.
Okay. So you think that going forward with, these comments, it's okay, and hopefully you'll
'cause
get
that's
asked.
that's the critical tax base for the city. If you don't have that as the tax base, I don't know that the city can survive.
And that's what we want to come of this whole line, which is very efficiently use the commercial areas that we have. So hopefully that's come across in these comments. I added number 8 after our last meeting, and I'd like to talk about it. That is the draft that first came through. Paul, I believe that was as a result of our last discussion at Bob. You drafted a resolution for consideration by council for the UGB, and it didn't have the level of detail that the next draft had. And it was, in my opinion, more similar to what I saw from Ball Ground and Camp. So, reason I think it's important that council at least be asked to ratify a resolution is because has worked pretty hard on this. I think it formalizes this work, and it also shows that there are other resolutions in nearby towns to do so. Doesn't contain a lot of detail, but I would imagine if council wants to add detail that they will. Those are my thoughts on that, if anyone has.
Laura, just a question, because some of the comments are not incorporated in this version. Are you assuming that we'll gain agreement today of what changes should be made to that version?
Well, or we can, rather than changing the draft, we can add detail. I think Scott and I had a discussion about the work that was done on the parcels, identifying the parcels in our, in rural Milton or AEE, those parcels.
Exhibit B.
Exhibit B, that work has been done by staff, and it's probably important that go forward, that we recognize that there are some anomalies or unusual commercial locations. And so how we title that page, if the group agrees that council should see that, I happen to agree that they should as well.
Yeah, there's some questions that I have on Exhibit B regarding, can't find it defined anywhere.
Okay, well then if that's okay with the group, we'll go through Exhibit B. And then if anyone has any suggestions on what we should call Exhibit B, maybe it goes after the map, hopefully that we come to agreement on, and we can title that parcels.
Area outside of the mapped A zone.
Say that again?
Areas outside of the mapped A zone, if we're calling that the A zone.
That's, well, I just called that map A, just, I have a plan B, so in case, that's why I have it A, but that's our preferred urban growth
But
boundary
it
map.
is,
Yeah,
I think it is, well, it's shown on our version 1 as draft Exhibit A. So
Okay,
if we incorporate Exhibit A, then anything outside, and it may be that we got too in-depth on B, and possibly we just have a statement that says there are properties outside of the, we're going to call it A zone, that possess zoning or density that allows a more intense development. And the group feels that these properties should be maintained at their current configuration, meaning not enlarged or decreased by the group. And that way, we're not fighting about any vagaries that may or may not happen in any one of these B properties, because there's no way we can individually know if there's a building setting over a building setback line, or if they meet tree density requirements, and that's not necessarily what I thought we were tasked with doing, is going into the vagaries or the detail of individual, properties. But just that there are properties out there outside of A, and we realize that they have a different, zoning capacity as opposed to AG1. And if that's, I'm not going to die on the hill that we've got to list every one of these properties. I just think that they should not be ignored. So that's,
Yeah, I would probably agree with that, because I don't think this list is always going to be changing, right? If somebody puts up a
right.
veterinary thing where they don't need any approvals by right, they can do that. That means this is out of date then.
No, because veterinary is AG1.
Yeah,
But is
again,
there-
some
And
of
there's
these
no
are-
AG1, there's no AG, these are only, Shuba, make sure I said,
the land use is retail
is-
and service. Yep,
and mixed use,
yeah, makes sense.
living, mixed
So
use living.
there's no AG1 in this list at all.
No, there's not.
Well,
actually.
one of them is zoned AG, I think we have to be careful because the urban growth boundary is an addendum to the land use plan.
Yep.
Not current zoning. And so that's why I tried to make my point on 6 to say we need to be consistent with the land use plan and reference it. And so looking for those, and it appears the properties on Exhibit B are those that are either retail or
Mixed use.
mixed use. And we might be able to make this simplified and not have Exhibit B list all these parcels and just say what they are, which is those parcels
Yeah.
identified in the land use plan as retail or mixed use.
Or currently zoned.
No, then they're not zoned.
I think we do.
Okay, well,
Land use designation right now is retail or mixed use. So we're gonna talk in terms of land use designation and not zoning. That's
I
what
just-
Judy's trying.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that I did not see this committee as changing the comprehensive land use plan. That was not our role to change that land use plan, that people spent a lot of time to get that developed as part of the comprehensive plan. And so that's why I think that this should be consistent with and refer to the land use plan.
Could we ask either Bob or our learned counsel if inserting a statement that there are properties outside would in fact change the comprehensive land use plan? And without identifying any specific properties? I couldn't see how, but I wanted someone else to speak.
Well, we're not going to change the comprehensive plan here, period.
Or any
We're-
zonings.
At most, we're recommending that it happen by those that have the authority to do that. But in so doing, that particular provision wouldn't, as it's written, I don't see it changing the comprehensive plan. It's only referring to what their designation is, either way. We are adding language to the currently, we're recommending adding language to the comprehensive plan discussing what the UGB means and why it's being adopted and what the city intends to do with it. So there is some change to the comprehensive plan, but it's not, it's just referencing a new concept of the UGB.
Yeah, we're adding, not taking.
We're not changing the district designations, the character areas of any properties.
Or the land use.
Yep.
Or the
no, we're
land
not
use.
changing land uses.
Okay, so how do you want to, how do you not include this detail, or are you?
I think and I was one of those that I initially started in saying, let's stick with the sewer lines and that, but then there was some discussion. But I think as a matter of firm principle, we need to not be changing the land use plan with these urban growth boundaries. And so one way to do that is to just state that it's the lines in Exhibit A, plus those properties designated in the land, or that land as designated in the land use plan as retail or mixed use living, working. And then we don't have to get into all these, every parcel. We don't have a definition for what is the northeast quadrant of Birmingham Crossroads. It's nowhere in our Muni code. But it is in the land use plan.
I feel like you may be opening up too much, because think about all the homes up here, and people may have business licenses to operate something
No,
inside the house.
I'm just trying to, instead of a list of parcels, which I think was kind of your idea that said we should get all these,
Uh-huh.
just say, if they're on the land use plan as red or purple effectively, which is, the legend,
Isn't that what these are?
except that two of the parcels are a challenge because they're not in the Fulton County tax records, and there's no definition of the Birmingham Crossroad quadrants.
Which two are challenged because they're not?
So I could not find in the Fulton County tax records the 4th and 5th on the list. And it's a little bit of a challenge. It's not there in there, but it's in our Milton records.
Okay.
So if you went to the Fulton County records to try to find these parcel IDs, they would say they do not exist.
Okay. So if we could table that real quick on the Birmingham Crossroads, walk me through the thought on why would you not include the Birmingham Crossroads?
I do want to include the
Okay.
Birmingham Crossroads,
Okay.
but I want to define the land that's there
Uh-huh.
as that which is designated on the land use plan as mixed use / living, working, because there is no legal definition of the quadrants of Birmingham Crossroads.
But there's an overlay, y'all have an overlay
Yeah,
Birmingham
but that's
Crossroads?
zoning. We are just talking about,
So there's both the Birmingham Crossroads overlay district, which is defined in our zoning ordinance with a map, and there's location of the crossroads. And then question that you're saying is the portions that are not served by the package plant?
No, it's not so much that, it's that the land use designation in the comprehensive plan does not equal the Birmingham overlay, and then does not, in the code, there's the Birmingham overlay, there's the land use, which is less than that, and even less than that is the Birmingham Crossroads core, which is yet another map.
Don't you think that's a council and mayor problem?
I think
not here?
they rely on us in a committee to work
So-
through the details to
So
get it
what,
correct.
so what I'm going to propose is that's an item on the feedback. Okay? It doesn't prohibit us from moving our work forward.
Yeah, but then I'm not in agreement with Exhibit B.
Okay? Then that's, I mean,
Because because we have two parcels that are hard to find. And
okay, which,
secondly,
So
because you
that's why
have no
we
definition of
we
the
shouldn't,
quadrants.
when we get into trouble, whenever we try to list exact parcel IDs, because sometimes you divide parcels, they get another ID. You know, it's my, my take on this is, as I had said previously, this UGB line on Exhibit A here is actually, splitting this city into urban growth boundary area and rural Milton area. It's clearly distinguishing the areas for growth and areas that are going to remain rural. That actually serves the purpose that we are trying to, achieve here. When the anomalies and all those small parcels that we see in rural Milton, they will never become as, in terms of density and intensity, same as the ones that are in urban growth boundary area. So even though they exist over there, we don't really have to worry about it. They're not going to become the ones that are in terms of intensity and density. I don't mean that they are different. They are not AG, they are not as low density residential, but they're still small scale and they're still low density areas compared to the ones that we're trying to contain. So that's why I think that they're already covered and we don't really need that Exhibit B at all. That's just my take on it.
I would agree with that. I think we can just eliminate Exhibit B, keep it as the existing sewer line is now.
I'm fine with removing individual parcels in Exhibit B, but I want a statement that says there are properties lying outside of A that do not specify anything on those.
Okay, that's fair enough.
okay,
We're not
so,
And we can remove
we're not
the individual
individually identifying
properties.
any of them. We're just saying, because the maps will show them,
Yes.
and we have the maps dated, the dates. So I think just the general statement.
This is a very high level document. And when we try to zoom in and pick parcels, we're getting into the territory of problems. This is not just the council members who's going to scrutinize this. This is DCA, which is a Department of Community Affairs. They're going to look at it and they're going to see on what basis you included these parcels in urban growth boundary. We really don't have much of an explanation.
so
I think you're
You want-
greatly
what would you,
diminishing the brain power of people that will be on those committees. If they can look, they can drive by a shopping center in Birmingham and know there is a shopping center in Birmingham. And us saying it's not there or it doesn't fit in the red lines does not mean it goes away. So I think ignoring it is, I don't
Putting a
understand.
general statement in is fine.
General statement. We don't, let's not individually bring anything out. We're not looking for
Right, We're
anything.
just doing a
But
general
they're
statement
not
based on
going
that
away.
map.
That shopping center is not going away. So a statement similar to, there are properties outside of the, however we want to designate that, a mapped zone which possess zoning or uses that allow a more intense, once again, I'm going to use use, but we can parse that. These properties should be maintained at their current configuration, meaning not increased, not decreased. That,
Emily's typing in, I'm just writing.
Emily, that's, I was keeping it, but I want to make sure, are we in agreement on that statement? Judy?
I'm He was kind of stumbling over a few, so I was hoping to get it read back.
Right.
We'll go again.
Let me enunciate more correctly, maybe. There are also properties outside of the
Exhibit
A mapped zone.
Exhibit A, just say exhibit, because we're going to have a map on Exhibit A, right?
There are also properties outside of Exhibit A, which either possess zoning or uses that are more intense than the Ag 1 standard. These properties should be maintained at their current configuration. So anything that needs to be added or parsed, I'm just trying to get rid of the B designation of individual properties that might create something, but we're not ignoring the fact that there are properties outside of A. And if some future council decides to address those situations, that's completely up to them.
Would it be worth saying that are consistent with the comprehensive land use plan? That's
That's
what
fair.
we're after, right? Would we want to add that?
Are they consistent though?
Leave there.
Just from a property owner standpoint, if you owned a piece of property, if I owned a piece of property up there and it's not mentioned here and there's no reference to it, my concern is, could somebody take away that designation from me years down the road? I think that's what Scott's
That's
saying.
my, is that it's pre-existing. This brings it, everyone, there can be no,
But are you
what-
comfortable with his statement?
Yeah, I
Because
thought that was,
we have the map, and the map,
I thought that
somebody would
was,
say, wait, the map on the day that this was approved did
Right.
show that property. I mean, that's what.
And anything has to go before council
right,
to
it's no,
accomplish any change.
and you
Like
would have to have a designation.
Yeah, well, legally you can't downzone somebody. So if you're already at that zoning, and generally, if the land use plan says it is the intent of the city that in the future that could be rezoned to a more intense use, then that often it gets great consideration in any ups or increased density requests. So that's why I kept referring back to the
I don't
land
think
use
that
plan.
anything in my statement would differ from what you just said.
Yeah.
I don't see a conflict.
Yeah, I'm okay, but I just want to get this idea that it's the future land use plan that ties with the urban growth boundaries.
and I've seen municipalities downzone properties before, so be careful. We gotta be careful with
I
that.
mean, there were C1 unconditionals that when the form-based code came through, that changed their
Zoning.
use. Absolutely.
Okay. So
It is actually, maybe an aside, but one of these parcels, even though it is on this list, is currently AG1 with a single-family residence, but way long ago, it was a gas station or something, or some kind of commercial, but it never lost that ability, but they're currently being taxed as if they're AG1's single-family residential.
Paul, do you have a pretty good understanding of what we're trying to do?
Yep, it's recorded. And
I
he is going
mean,
to.
I
just-
understood this, adding a statement.
Yeah.
Did you find anything grossly inappropriate about the statement?
If it's a statement of what this.
Acknowledgement.
this-
It's an
this
acknowledgement.
council-
Yeah,
this-
yeah.
I just
This
want it to
committee is
be-
interested in seeing happen,
Yeah.
that they can make those statements, absolutely.
Emily, one more time, did you want to?
You want to read it? Just
Well, you said it differently both times.
Well, I want you to read what you have.
So I tried to.
Thank you.
Here's what I have, and y'all can edit it. It says, there are properties outside of the Exhibit A line which possess zoning or uses that allow them for a more intense use. I put that in parentheses 'cause I'm not sure about that one. Than the AG1 standard. These properties should be maintained at their current configuration. How do we feel about that?
I will say, if you're expecting the city council to adopt that, that's applying a limitation on the use of the property in the future that doesn't currently exist. If you're just stating that's what you feel like should be occurring on those properties, I have no problem with.
It's a statement.
Yeah.
So they have the ability to change the use of any of those properties through a zoning anytime, correct?
Well,
Petition?
Because it's only a statement.
You're saying could someone petition to change, file a rezoning application?
That's kind of what,
Yes.
I didn't, so maybe I misunderstood your statement, but I took it to say that we were telling council that we were trying to
But my
exert their
understanding from
authority.
this, the statement suggests they cannot increase their use of the property.
or change it.
But
So for
but
example-
It says maintain
Yeah,
it.
that's what I'm saying.
So for
If-
example, if
At
you
their current
have AG1
configuration.
property today and you want to make it a veterinary clinic, you don't have to go for a use permit or a rezoning, because that's a permit, it's a different use, it's a more intense use, but it's permitted. So I
That's
don't,
today.
that,
That's today. It may not be tomorrow, but that's today.
yeah, in the code today, one of the permitted uses for AG1, but if we say that, oh, you can only use it for what you're using it now, that would say, I think that's where the pushback is on the
No, I said the
use.
configuration.
But you
meaning
also use
change
the
it.
word use.
Oh, we're gonna stick with configuration and not the use because they.
Okay, that was,
I mean, either use or configuration is attaching a limitation that if you, it's one thing if this council is saying, we think that, if this body is recommending, we think that's what should happen. But if they're suggesting that the board adopt the resolution that imposes a restriction, then that's a different, I don't know whether you're attempting to accomplish that or not.
So we're not talking about anything that would be in a resolution. Okay, we're just
Okay.
talking about the feedback that we have, that we've, as we went through this process, this was something that was a pretty significant consideration.
Right, no, that's fine. I mean, if the comment is going into a list of comments from the committee generally, we're talking about Exhibit B to the resolution. So if they're separate, if we're getting rid of Exhibit B and putting in a separate comment somewhere else in a report from this stakeholder committee, I have no problem with making those comments about what you'd like to see.
All right, let me see if I can, I want to restate this. When I first went into this, I was one of the folks that wanted to circle every property just to make it simple. I thought that was the simplest approach. If the property is being used for a certain use, I just wanted to circle it. And the consensus was, let's not do that. So now we're at a point where we're saying we want to make sure that the current use of these properties, and the one that's really in question, I think, is I know there are a lot, but the biggest one is the Birmingham Crossroads. So if the Birmingham Crossroads has a certain use right now, we want to make sure that the property owners of the Birmingham Crossroads, their use isn't taken away from them or lessened. If they have it today, we want to make sure, or I would like to make sure that they have it tomorrow. And so I wanted just to circle it, but the consensus was not to circle it. So I just want to make sure that they're protected. If I have a restaurant up there, I want to make sure that down the road, I may not use it for a restaurant, but I have that opportunity to use it
So
for a
we can,
restaurant.
if you guys want to circle those, we can do it in the map. We don't need another Exhibit B. We can just draw a border on that, on those purple gunk that whatever we are seeing over there. And I have a map created as an alternative.
I know, but I thought we were saying that the legal descriptions of these were such that we couldn't exactly do them. That's why I was hoping that a blanket statement would alleviate any of that. I'm where you're at, but I
Well, I
was
think- Right, I think,
understanding, I mean, if the legal description matched the pen, then I'm fine.
yeah, because I too was worried.
Birmingham Crossroad, founded by Redline.
because I too was worried about expansion outside of those. That's why I thought if we drew the urban growth around these, but I think we don't need that because we've got the zoning, we've got other things to protect that. And I think most of the uses up there are by use case, which are in perpetuity that go with the land. So I think both sides are covered. The way I'm looking at it right now, both sides are covered without that. But I do think, we need the resolution to be as clean and as straightforward and as simple as possible and as long-term as possible. And then we've got a list of considerations, like, is the city viable? Yeah, as of today, we're being told it's viable, it's good. We're being told, these are the other things we've considered in this when we came up with this resolution, and that's why it looks the way it does. That's why it's not really, I think burying all that stuff, putting all that stuff in the resolution, like some of the things, I think that's where it just got too crazy for me.
Just the Birmingham Crossroad.
Where do you have the red drawn?
Around the purple.
Yeah, just the very up top.
Oh, the purple is the Birmingham, and then you've got, okay. I mean, I like that because it says what it's supposed to say. Now, I know we don't hit all the other, but I mean, to me, that's the main piece of commercial that's kind of out there.
I'm good with substituting version B for Exhibit A.
I mean, that is a solution if you really feel about that Birmingham Crossroad needs to be in there. We can solve that issue without Exhibit B, but having this map instead of that map. It's an alternative, but
Well, to me, Birmingham Crossroads is just as important as any property that's inside of the aforementioned A.
you're the stakeholders, whatever you say.
I mean, if that's one opinion, is that.
Yeah, so
And that follows the comprehensive land use plan as a commercial node.
Mhm.
I have no issues with that.
So the map that we're going to use is,
B,
Is-
which incorporates.
Jake, are you okay with that?
I know we're spending a lot of time about a few things to this point. What is the city and what is this group's understanding of what is going to take place with Highway 140 over the next 10 or 20 years?
So this group is,
Yeah, that's-
that
I
is
don't think it's
outside
our-
of what we can,
Yeah, I don't think that's in our.
but we
purview.
do have
I'm sorry,
that.
what were you saying?
I don't think that's how we've been tasked to do. We've not been
Okay,
tasked to say.
but we're talking about a boundary. And as I
But not-
mentioned in the last meeting,
Right, that maps the sewer boundaries, what we've been told. They want another thing almost on top of the sewer map.
all right, so as I mentioned last meeting and as Adam mentioned in an email that, I think we've discussed pretty firmly, there's clear, it seems like agreement within the group of an existing line with most of this area. I believe we are delaying the inevitable, whether we like it or not. I think it's important to mention. 140 will one day be a 4-lane road. And there will be stoplights where you don't have stoplights now, and you're going to have a clear, in my opinion, common sense, maybe use case for some sort of urban use along 140.
What we
Jake?
discussed, though, just quick, and said that we're still going to be tasked by the CPAC and as part of the small area work programs to do a small area study.
Right, and I remember we,
Back with that, the results of that and then we'll have it to come back and amend this. In the future, we could always amend this line this is, again, this is not something that's steadfast. Council can amend it, but at least
Yeah.
it's in there. So for now, it's not really being.
amending
That's not to
something
say
is,
that it won't be addressed as part of the small area plan. We can sit down and say, okay, if we feel like that's an important corridor and it needs it, we can come back and say, okay, then we need to modify it.
Right.
Right now, I can't really recommend modifying anything without doing that small area plan.
And to that extent, Jake and Bob, comment number 3 and what Shuba on the last page gave us.
Yes.
I would feel even more comfortable about recommending that a small area plan be conducted to determine future land use and potential for future inclusion inside an urban growth boundary. to say, hey, come back. When you get because right now, I think my comment was, I wouldn't know where to draw the line because I don't know
Exactly.
what the plan is. But as soon as you say, here's the plan, then I'd feel more comfortable saying, here's the red line.
I'd be okay with that, because that's
Yeah.
really the intent of what we're trying to achieve.
Right now, we don't know how far we go. Do we go 500 feet from the highway? Oh, we need that plan to draw the boundary. Right now, it's incomplete information that we have.
Well, we're,
I thought that the whole purpose of this committee was to do that. But I hear what you're saying too, to come back. So as long as there's a strong language to come back and address it, because I think when you look at it, you would say, hey, it's a state highway. It's going to be 2 lanes today, 4 lanes tomorrow. State highways never get more narrow. But the flip side would be, why is Crooked Creek in there? To me, Crooked Creek, I'd pull out because, if I lived there, I'm not sure as a resident that I would want to see that it's designated here. So, I mean, I would yank Crooked Creek out, but then I would put in something like this. So I think as y'all study it, the study should be involved, even though Crooked Creek is served by sewer, does the commercial growth or the urban growth boundary, should it have to follow the sewer? Because some stuff you may want to pull out and some stuff you may want to add in.
And Adam, there's where I see the urban growth boundary as being commercial and higher density residential, and Crooked Creek is less than an acre.
Yeah.
It's higher density residential.
Yeah,
Because
but
we
when I
also,
think of high density, I'm thinking 4, 5, 10, 20 units an acre. And I don't think people in Crooked Creek are thinking that
Well,
way.
the enclave, the last section they developed
Yeah.
along Highway 9 is, I think it's 3 units or so, and to me, that's pretty urban.
Yeah.
As compared to low density.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with it included. If there is a way that we can make a recommendation that
Study those areas.
you study Arnold Mill Road.
So that's in here.
Which
That's
okay.
number 3.
but I think to make it a little stronger, to add the words and potential future inclusion inside the urban growth boundary at the end of 3. But our intent is bring it back.
Got
To whoever at the time.
so is that open-ended? Is there a deadline? Is there a recommendation from this group?
So we
Are
can
gonna
make
wait
that
for the state to
recommendation.
come
It's a
and say
council,
They're going to build the 4-lane road.
it's a council
Yeah, we don't-
decision.
Again, that's not our,
So we're going to capture the recommendation. So Emily, I think we're adding to,
Number 3.
got it?
The
Awesome.
comp plan requires staff to have it done within a 5-year period, because we have to go back to DC and report every 5 years on what we're finding. We don't want to start anything new this particular fiscal year, so remember, because the city's got to allocate funds to study. It's not going to be a cheap study. About $200,000 to do that.
As someone who studied the corridor, I can save us some time in telling you probably what it's going to be eventually. And that's why I'm bringing it up in this conversation.
Okay.
You know,
So I think if we add
so
that in.
I think it's
that'd be-
important to at least mention publicly
So Emily,
where
can
that's
you,
going.
that statement, just because I want to be sure that Jake, you starts on number 3, public comments.
Public comments from landowners as well as members of the stakeholder committee recommend that a small area plan be conducted for the Arnold Mill corridor to determine future land use and for recommendations for current zonings and uses. Hold on, that got weird.
That isn't what it says.
Potential inclusion.
Sorry, that's from a different line. Hold
For
on.
potential inclusion.
Yeah, that's how it ends. Consideration of inclusion within the urban growth boundary.
And I actually said potential future inclusion because I don't want them to hold up this waiting for that.
Consideration of future inclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd even be willing to say that a small area plan be quickly conducted.
Who's going to define quickly? That's
Yeah.
Find that.
out of the beholder.
It's in there.
Yeah.
Could you read it back one more time?
Do you want me to add in the quickly?
No.
Recommend that a small area plan be conducted for the Arnold Mill corridor to determine future land use. hold on, it's still weird.
And potential inclusion.
In
No, don't
consideration of future inclusion within the urban growth boundary.
I think there's needs to be a potential in there somewhere that got lost.
I thought,
Yeah.
and
Do you want me to
potential
read what I
future
have and you can
Yes.
keep up with it? Number 3, public comments from landowners as well as members of the stakeholder committee recommend that a small area plan be conducted for the Arnold Mill corridor to determine future land use and potential future inclusion inside the urban growth boundary.
Got it.
Good. Okay, I got it.
Got to add the word quick.
Okay.
Quickly.
Okay, so Jake, are
Yeah,
you,
I think there needs to be some sort of agreement on how long that is.
so this
You
group,
can say quickly, that's
That's-
5 years for some and
so
a
I,
month for others.
that recommendation.
Just a thought.
But it's in the small area plan already in the comp.
Yes, it's one of the short-term work
It's one of the
program,
work
really.
programs and council's got it on the agenda to look at it, to finance it, to fund it. Start it next fiscal year. And then by the time they do the plan and go through the adoption process. We have to get everything done before 5 years, so.
But I don't.
Does that
think-
go down, would that be including the Cox Road and Ranchette
That whole
and
area. We'll start
yeah,
looking at.
that
whole
corridor
area
is
as a
basically that
corridor.
entire bottom left corner then?
Right, we'll look at, we'll
Probably.
study the whole corridor. And then hopefully you'll see, then that's when we'll get the landowners involved and we'll see the public input to see really where we're gonna end up landing on that.
Bob, do you see that being an LCI with Roswell and Cherokee or just a Milton plan?
Right now, I think it's only a Milton plan.
Again,
But right now, I don't have any joint effort with funding and stuff with them.
I go back to, this committee was not tasked with rezoning. It wasn't tasked with changing the land use plan. And I don't think it was tasked with, dictating where we do small
It's
area
in the
planning. I don't think that's why I don't think it's ours. Is it need to be done? Absolutely. But I think that's more of a development. That's outside of what we were tasked to do. It's outside of this committee.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because the way I understood it was as the UGB line is drawn up is where sewer is.
It was, well,
Or,
it was designed, the UGB was designed as another level of protection on top of the sewer map.
I guess maybe worded a little bit different. If GDOT or whoever it is that rolls in here and says, we're making this particular road a 4-lane road, they're most likely, my assumption is incorrect, but they're most likely going to say, we're also running sewer along
I
this.
don't know
Is
if
that
you-
incorrect?
I
It won't
don't
be
think you said the
GDOT.
city of Milton. I don't think it's said for the city of Milton. Even if they were.
I'm sorry?
It wonn't be GDOT, it won't be
Okay,
DOT, but
Whoever it is, if they're going to make that a 4-lane Holcomb Bridge Junior,
yeah. I mean, you've got City of Roswell on one side and their
and those are some
development standard.
anchor commercial lots on that side, for the record. So you're talking about another city that stuff already is going to be commercial down there.
But
I couldn't agree more. Not going to solve this.
do you know the road design?
You want to add a time frame on it?
I don't,
It's council that needs to take that forward. And I know why they're waiting, because they want to see when the road's going to go in. So I know it's frustrating, but we're not going to solve it today.
But I don't want that time frame to be. Training in the program. I know we're already doing budget for 2024.
Right.
Practically, it's already there. Now, it's still up to council to approve that budget and the funding and to approve all of this work. It's ultimately up to council to do it. But it is in there. I just want everybody to know.
So knowing that then as a group, knowing that the potential is in fact that that is going to change just here on the bottom left corner, we feel comfortable as a group approving this with the fact of an amendment.
With,
Can we
with
just
that
comfortably
number
say
three.
likely?
With that, yeah. 'Cause again, we don't know, when is, do we know when?
It takes
that's
care of
supposed to-
everything else.
Do we know when that's going to be 4 lanes? Not going to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
But what I've heard was Cherokee is waiting for Milton and Roswell, and Milton and Roswell is waiting for Alpharetta, and then Alpharetta is waiting for Roswell. So there's, I think, a lot of different hands in the cookie jar there.
Yeah, so I think, I think when that comes up is the time for council and development to focus on that. I think now, we're trying to do this, now, and that's going to be, it's got to be, well, at least, good to guess, what would you say, 4 or 5 years?
Probably
2
10 years.
Yeah. I think there's a lot that can happen between now
And
and
there's so
then.
many parameters. Is the existing right of way going to be sufficient? Or are they going to throw 50 more feet on either side that they're going to take? And then that changes the whole parameter.
But you
Trying to
realize the way
design.
this is structured right now, every 5 years when we do a CPAC update, this is all going to be re-reviewed anyway by the CPAC committee. So this is, I mean, if there's something between the 5-year period, yes, council can do it. But normally CPAC will be re-reviewing all of these things,
Yeah.
land use and everything every 5 years. So even land use potentially can change. All of this stuff can change. I mean, there is room. That's why it's there. It's in that in-between period that we're hoping that this will hold water and say to the council, look, it's let the 5-year periods come and then let's see what CPAC comes up with from all that community input to see really where we are. To hold the lines until we do those every 5-year updates. Because every 5 years we do update everything.
So we have, for now, we have edited number 3
Yes.
on the list, and we have pretty much removed number 6 because we are going with map B for exhibit A. So we have also kind of taken care of my agenda item 5 because I wanted to look at the map to solve our issues.
Just the only other comment I had was on the resolution, down on the whereas, 3 up. Version 1, can we just, I didn't know if we should strike the word industrial.
I mean, we have no industrial.
Oh.
Industrial use, so that's why we
sorry.
had it, so we'll just take that out.
Oh, gosh,
Okay.
we're not going to get a auto plan or anything in the near future.
Slaughterhouse.
Everyone okay with that?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Sounds to me.
That's just a residential commercial mix, I guess. Yeah, with that.
Okay, thank you.
either
Clarity,
way.
the
I mean, you'll
proposed
eventually-
language from Scott,
I'm fine with that.
where is that getting inserted?
So
Oh, it's
proposed
not going
language
to be
and
now
Scott,
because
because
we've
using
substituted
A.
the
we
map.
substituted the map.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
So it goes
Changing
away.
over.
All right, Judy, were you asking where?
No, where's Scott's language about, and others? So at the end of number 1 on the resolution, on the last page, is that now attached here to as Exhibit A,
Semicolon.
along with, or does it just say
That should be the end of it.
Yeah, right,
Exhibit A,
stops.
period?
Semicolon and.
Oh, semicolon and, sorry.
yeah, that statement can become number 9 if you want, because it's not going to go as, state. Okay, Scott's statement.
I'm lost now.
No, it's
Pretty
just
new
your
again.
I
statement.
know, but it's going to be.
Well, it's going to be 8
so
because
that-
we
that
removed 6.
disappears, And this draft exhibit A becomes substituted.
With version B.
Yes.
Version B.
A, but it's B.
You're
Yeah.
okay
Yep.
with it, Paul?
Yep.
But we're going to,
What's that?
We're going to recap everything.
I'm good with that.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
but we can
Although
now
I'm
put
relying on.
Yeah, we can
letter
put
A
A.
on this
Yes.
one and not,
And just call it A.
yeah, I wouldn't call B and not have an A.
B becomes A.
B becomes A.
Yes.
And therefore, in number 2 on the resolution, C becomes B.
Yes.
Take B off.
Call it A, okay.
This way you know you got the right.
Now you're
Right,
dealing with people who
exactly.
write contracts for a living.
Right. So we are all in agreement with the map. I'm happy with that. So we can go to the public comment if we can, unless you guys want to discuss something else.
Quickly, I'm just curious, I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but there's 2 islands on this bottom right corridor. Are those Alpharetta city buildings, I believe?
Yes, those are Alpharettas.
That's Crabapple,
No.
Alpharetta.
Over here, there's one.
Okay, and what about the one in the middle then?
That's actually, there is no sewer over there, right, Robin, here?
But there's sewer surrounding it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's off of Hopewell Road. There's no,
But there's sewer surrounding it.
yeah,
Okay,
we're just talking about.
so that's included in the UGB or
But
that's
no, that's
excluded?
excluded, yeah.
There's a red line around.
What is
the
it?
line.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So,
Goes first.
So this,
I mean,
all
just
this-
playing devil's advocate here, what is
No,
the?
you're
But
right.
the
Yeah, I mean,
white
what is
has a
that?
red line around it.
Well,
Well,
that's why I'm bringing
it's
it up.
kind of excluding because it's surrounded by all kinds of, that's how the sewer line is also drawn.
I can shade in the areas that will be in the UGB
That's
for the next
Alpharetta.
one if you'd like. That way we can see that parcel not being included.
Do we know what is that right now? Is that someone's home?
I think it's
Yes.
some
This,
RP,
yeah,
R4, something.
State.
So if they,
Yeah, they tried to rezone once and
Failed.
they were.
okay, so they tried to rezone for more density than Ag 1
Extend sewer to it.
and they failed because,
Council denied it
that recent?
3 years ago.
Yeah, I think Adam, I don't want to put words in Adam's mouth, but when you talk about, I don't know, slippery slope. I mean, if you're talking about a neighborhood, you know, if you're talking about something like that, north of the city up by the manor
But
and they're
this is
trying
where
to,
it helps because once you have UGB, we can slowly open it up if we need to. and
understand.
If we feel strong
so why are we
about it,
excluding
right?
that though? I have nothing to do with that land, by the way, but I'm just asking as a resident and also maybe a little common sense.
Council is,
If it's inside the UGB,
it's not inside, it's excluded from.
well, it's,
I know, it's a donut hole, yes, it's a donut hole, yes.
That's something maybe in the future.
Am I wrong
in
here?
5 or 10 years, I know.
Well, if you knew all the backstory.
Okay.
Then it's an anomaly.
All right,
And,
cool.
We have
that
hours
has to
of
be
video
an
for you to
anomaly
watch.
until council.
I don't have the
so
time to watch it.
decides
I'm
to
asking
rezone.
as a person who cares about Milton, but also brings a little bit of common sense to, there are people who own land who have either bought it or inherited it. And there are certain spots where it makes absolutely no sense to allow them to do that and build townhomes up by the manor. But there are also other areas that might make sense to offer certain things.
And those people who
That's
buy
it.
and own the land now, I don't think we've changed anything with them, right? It's still what they was zoned, it was still what it was when they.
And they will have,
We haven't changed anything, we haven't taken anything away.
they would, after this time cures, they will have the ability to ask for a rezoning. And if
Got
the
it.
time has cured now, they've got to wait.
They could ask
Well,
it,
wait a
yeah.
minute.
I'm
3
fine.
years. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, and I mean, I would say just as a background, I think when they asked for a little bite of the apple, they asked.
Fair.
It was not
It
a,
was not
Well thought
comparable
out.
to what was developed around it. So
Understood.
That put them in a bad. But, you know, who's to say? It's not like they were asking for 3/4 acre lots. Comparable with some properties. Even with sewer.
Okay, that was the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
No, we already got a consensus on the map, so
You okay?
I'm known for tripping.
Okay, so we're going to summarize what we,
yep,
all right,
let's just summarize it.
Duba, you are going, we're going to complete the summary here with, you're going to insert the meeting,
Yes.
this one being the last date.
Yeah.
Okay. We have reached agreement on feedback of number 1,
Mm-hmm.
number 2, number 3, which is amended, and Emily has that.
Yep.
Is everyone okay with that? Do we need to reread it? No, we're good?
Good.
Okay. Number 4, number 5. We have taken out number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7, I'm going to ask that we move time is of the essence based on Adam's feedback. You're telling me that it's not as urgent as I had thought it was.
No, I mean, I don't think it's urgent, but at some point, the city continues to grow. You're going to need tax money, and this is the main tax.
Okay. All right, so that was my comment, so you
Yeah.
can take out time is of the essence.
Mhm.
Number 8 is inclusion for council consideration
Mm-hmm.
of draft 1 of the resolution. Draft 1 that refers to map.
Yeah, but we made some changes
Yep.
to some of the wording, so I don't know if you want to call it version 2 or not.
So on the resolution, draft version 1, draft 1, Bob requested to take out the word industrial on the 6th whereas. Then under now and therefore, we're striking out under 1 after Exhibit A.
Just
Along,
period.
yeah, just a period.
No, it actually isn't a period, it's, you strike out along to the quote of Exhibit B and keep the semicolon and in there.
Okay.
Which one? What is that? Sorry, I was,
That's right.
I was trying to figure out, are we
I think
talking?
Emily's gonna-
Emily, you have it? Okay.
So,
all right.
and then no change to number 2.
Change the exhibit number
Yep.
from B, or from C to
C
B.
to B,
Okay.
because there's no longer a C.
Strike Exhibit B and relabel CB.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then just for clarification, we're working off of B.
Yep.
Not B, which becomes A.
Yep.
Yes. And I would like to have public comment before we vote or agree to move everything forward. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have 2 public comments. We're good? Good, good.
All right, so then we can
Right.
call for-
Okay.
Are we in, I'm a little confused because Scott had some language about there are some other properties. Was that going to become,
That's gone.
it's gone? Okay,
Completely
Decided
gone.
not to include that
Because we
detail.
substituted maps.
right. Perfect.
So we're voting on, forwarding this through staff to council, the summary sheet as amended, map, resolution version 1, draft 1, with the amended changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. And I have treats for everyone.
And I want to say thank you to each member of stakeholder committee meeting. You have excelled into this. You actually have, this was really a new concept and very difficult to implement, but you have done a great job of voicing citizens' concerns and deliberating where that UGB needs to go. So thank you all.
Yep, thank you, staff.
Thank you. Thanks for leading us.
Move to adjourn.
And listen, everybody's welcome.